Welcome back to another episode of Generally Assembled, your favorite House Republican podcast. My name is Jason Gottesman, joined by Representative Jesse Topper.
Good to be here.
Blue shirts, red ties. We got it.
We do. We look like we planned this today.
We did not plan.
But we did not. Yes, to be very clear to our 6 listeners, we did not. No, we have more than 6.
Well, we planned the podcast. We didn't plan the entire. Yeah, hopefully we have more than 6
no,
listeners.
this podcast is rolling.
Yes, uphill, downhill, sideways.
It's rolling.
It's moving. It's moving.
I'm anticipating potentially. What are the awards for radio? Is it an Emmy? Does Emmy
Grammy?
Include is it Grammy on the radio? I don't know.
Is it a Grammy?
Who gives awards
Grammy.
out for podcasting?
Emmy's TV.
Okay.
Well, then there's like the iHeartRadio awards, right?
One day I do expect this to be an award-winning podcast of some kind.
Okay, well, we might have to invent our own awards.
That's fine. We're good at doing that. We're good at doing that.
All right, so hey, look, we're back in session now. It is officially it's going to be May. Saturdays, May the 4th.
Right.
May the 4th be with you.
I don't watch Star Wars.
Well, no, but like they're all like cultural. It's okay.
It's
okay. It's all right.
I'm so focused on law and public policy.
Oh, thinking about actually doing your job.
Right. Yeah. I don't know what we're talking about here.
All right. So that's all prelude to the fact that it's May. We're now 2 full months away from when we have this budget deadline, which I don't think anybody anticipates being met at this point. But
I don't know. I actually here's what I believe. I believe that there is a path to do it. Now, whether we're able to do it really centers around a huge piece, which is education funding. Now, there are other major components. I mean, it's a huge budget. But I think there's a path because it's clear in my conversations, even on the other side of the aisle, the conversations of accountability with dollars. It's hard to argue with that. I mean, we have to figure out, for our kids' sake, we have to figure out what works. And if we're going to spend money, how are you going to spend it? How is that going to be directed to student achievement? And then what are the outcomes, other than just standardized testing, because we all agree that that needs to be a little smaller of a component for student achievement and success. So what are the other metrics? What are the other outcomes we're looking for? If we establish that, if we match that with the money, I think we can get to a place where we can say, what are we really doing here? Is it money that's being invested into students, or is it just going into the kind of the black hole of the educational apparatus, never to be seen again, and oh, by the way, student outcomes are still not where we want them to be? Those are the questions we've got to answer. If we're willing to roll up our sleeves and do that, I think I see a path. But if we're not, if it's just going to be a conversation of no accountability and dollars going to whoever asks them because we think we're flush with cash, then I think we got a problem.
Yeah, no right mind would argue with using taxpayer dollars to buy a little accountability. And you know, that's I think the big trade-off. That's I think one of the fundamental differences about how we approach as House Republicans, as some are want to do with funding, right? Is we want to know, you members as much as myself as staff, but how that money is being used and how it's being, what success is being tied to that funding, because it isn't money that goes, it's other people's money.
It's a return on investment. Right. And some you just hit a key point sometimes when we budget in Harrisburg. I remember very early on, I had only been here maybe a year or two. It might have been the first time I spoke on the House floor on a budget bill, when one of the things I said was, this isn't our money. We tend to look at it as, quote, state money. I hear this back home all the time. Oh, you just need state money. We need federal money. Like, you understand that, we didn't get that money from a bake sale.
Right,
like,
exactly.
These are tax dollars. They're coming from your hard work, your effort. The other day, we had an education hearing where there's a program that's being sponsored by a lot of nonprofits that do fundraising, and they sponsor sending books into homes for young kids that they can start to learn to read earlier. And they want to transition that from something that's being funded in the private sector to something that's being funded by us, the state government. And I said, I don't necessarily like that. I like the fact that communities are engaged in this process and doing it themselves, as opposed to, because they talk about, well, they need to do fundraising. Well, guess what? Our fundraising is a little more mandated. Like, when we fundraise, we raise people's taxes. Let some of those things be community investments. And then when we do have state investments, wouldn't it be great to go back to our taxpayers, those who support whose money it is, and say, all right, we're investing your money. Now, here is your return on investment.
Mm-hmm.
This is what you're seeing for our kids, for our communities, for our schools, for this money. And then I believe that's where you lead to conversations that restore that trust between the people and where the money's going.
Well, there's a lot of conversations that happen when it goes to funding in relation to spending money in more like the private sector. What you're outlining is actually more like a nonprofit or a donor-funded organization where you need to take other people's money and show that you have value attached to that. And also, look, if you're asking for more money, here is the plan that I have to use that money effectively for the organization. And I'm going to come back and report to you about why your money, not asking you for more, but just to tell you, here is how your money was useful to the organization.
And I do view it in that role. Government being run as a business is a nice catchphrase, but we all know who's been in government that's really not a business.
Right.
It is different than a business because you don't have a CEO or a board of a small group
Don't
making
tell
the
Josh Beer
decisions. He's competitive as hell.
Right.
But
He wants government to move at the speed of business.
right,
You haven't heard.
Right. And now government moving at that's great, but yet is it? Like people talk about how slow government moves, and you know what I say? The founders set it up that way.
Mm-hmm.
The founders set it up to be. You don't want us moving at the speed of the private sector many times. No, I'm not saying
Creating law should be painful. It shouldn't be one person, because it's the quickest form of government is somebody going yes, no.
Right, exactly. And that's what happens
That's
a lot in a business, right?
Right.
There's somebody who has their finger on that button saying yes and no, whereas here you have 203 people with that button, all of whom think they're the boss, hitting yes or no. It creates a different environment, and that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to the money, again, we have to provide accountability, and if you do that, it makes it a lot. When you go back to your home districts and talk about investments, right? We're investing into communities. They can see it.
Mm-hmm.
If they don't see it, if all they see are problems, then to them, every time that tax money comes out of their paycheck, they don't see it as a value.
Right.
And that's what we have to do in Pennsylvania. We have to make sure and if we have too much money, and this is an argument I've made before, if we're bringing in more money than we can spend from a value standpoint, it's time to start giving some of it back.
Yeah, that's right. And that's why, look, returning taxpayer investment into the community, not just in education, but in the form of grants, community funded. It's so important to make sure people see that their money is being used for their benefit, and just doesn't go, be it in the state government level or down education and local government, into some black hole where there is no real result or tangible results that people can see that's happening.
And that's so easy to do. We have so many little kingdoms in Pennsylvania that can absorb money but not necessarily produce the kind of results. And that's where public policy comes in terms of tying outcomes to those dollars. It's what we're trying to do in higher education, the higher education bills that were moved out of the Senate.
moving in the Senate.
Moved out of Senate committee, and one of the key pieces, the performance-based metrics, exactly what we're talking about. If we're going to invest into particularly the 3 R1 universities, Pitt, Penn State, and Temple, let's have data to track how that is coming back and helping Pennsylvania. It makes sense.
Yep.
And by the way, these institutions are also saying it makes sense. They're realizing that things have to change in terms of an accountability standpoint. Let's take advantage of that.
Yeah, well, there's a long budget road ahead of us. We really haven't even gotten started yet. In terms of the actual nitty-gritty of putting pen to paper on a budget, things are moving in concept and
but some of
proposals.
The pieces are in place. It's a matter of
we're setting the table now.
Right.
The table's being set.
Now can we actually roll up our sleeves and have some of the difficult discussions on what it looks like? The later that goes, the less chance this has of getting done in a reasonable time frame.
Right. Wow. Well, I don't know. What's going on in the umpire world?
So high school baseball, we're really in full swing here, and also professional baseball. We're seeing
Phillies' first 20 wins.
Yeah, the Pirates have become the Pirates.
Okay. They were a buzzsaw there for a while.
But the umpiring discussion, of course, there's a lot of emphasis played on that one series that I think it was New York and Oakland when Hunter Wendelstedt threw Aaron Boone out because a fan said something about Boone, and there definitely has been some umpiring.
I mean, what do you do as an umpire in that situation? Where clearly I didn't see how that resolved, but
so that has happened. That has happened. When you throw somebody out, that's kind of it. Like you just have, but. There have been moments when a dugout's really giving you a hard time. I had this happen to me in a spring training game one time where dugout was giving me a hard time, and you can't always pick out exactly who it is, but then you hear that one thing that's you have to eject somebody.
Yeah.
So the way I did it then, and the way I would encourage most of them, I whipped the mask off, went over and said, "Somebody's going." If somebody doesn't put their hand up and say who said it, then I get to pick over the next couple seconds, and it's probably going to be that big old first baseman that's your cleanup hitter. Maybe he said it, right?
Yeah.
And usually you have some relief pitcher that's not playing. I'm Spartacus, right? They put their hand up. See, I made a movie reference there.
I'm glad to see you've seen some movies.
Right, and it was a good one. But put their hand up and say, "It was me." All right, or some assistant coach. I said it. All right, you're gone. Like you have to make the point.
Yeah.
But teams that I have officiate know that when I take the mask off and say knock it off, we're done. If you hear something after that and somebody's got to go, there are times when you're guessing. Aaron Boone has earned his reputation in terms of umpires, and I'm sure that's what happened with Hunter. Like he said no more. He turns around, puts the mask on. Something gets said. He immediately thinks it's Boone. He throws him out. It was unfortunate.
Do you think there's like a post-game apology or like, hey, that's...
So the umpires missed a call on an interference play at second base. They did apologize for that. Usually ejections do not garner any kind of apology.
When it's so blatant, it was on all the news.
Yeah, I have no trouble letting players or coaches know when I screw something up. Oh, by the way, same with constituents. I admit I make mistakes. I've made votes that I don't like. I've made calls that I don't like on the field. When you think about it with hindsight, it's like, maybe I missed that pitch, and I'll tell a pitcher coming off, "Hey, bud, I missed that one. That curveball you threw to the right-hander, that's on me." Now, if the right-hander went on to hit a 3-run homer and the pitcher gets pulled because that extended the inning, probably not going to talk to him right at that point, right? But for the most part, try and let guys know, hey, we're humans. We make mistakes. I'm sorry about that. And 95% of the time, the guys are going to be like, "Hey, we get it, man. Thanks for working for us."
I had an umpire apologize to me when I was in Little League. It was a nail biter. We were playing Towamencin. I'll never forget. It was away, and I beat out I hit the ball, beat it out to first base, and the coach on the other team said, if he tries to go to the bag, tag him.
Oh,
but I knew the rules, and so I walked right back down the first baseline to get the first base, which is how else are you supposed to get to the base?
Right.
There has to be a path back to the base, right? That's the you can't make a move towards second, right? So they tagged me, and the umpire called me out. Well, it was a big to do. Coaches, umpires, and if you couldn't imagine, I was a little sensitive at the time,
And so you're crying.
Because I felt like I screwed up, but I didn't do anything wrong, and so I was off to the side, and people are trying, like, you didn't do anything wrong. The umpire did come over after the inning and was like, I for sure 100% made the wrong call. That's you didn't do anything wrong. Like, didn't help.
Right. No, not
but
at the time.
I did make the game ending and winning catch.
So you
on a
guys
line
did
drive.
win.
We did win. We won the game.
So the rule, so that everybody knows, because it can be very subtle, even if it's a subtle move.
Yeah.
I mean, if you are running through the bag at first base and you make any kind of a subtle move, it has nothing to do with where you turn or how you get back to the base. It's if you make any kind of a move towards second, no matter how subtle, you got to get back to the base or you can tag you out. We've seen a lot of that in MLB where you see like a flinch.
Yeah.
If the umpire sees it, then yes. But if it's just turning around and walking back to the base, you're good.
And so it was.
It's amazing how many announcers don't know the rules when they're watching a game and they try and make stuff up, and it cracks me up.
Well, did you see the B situation last night?
No, I heard about it. I didn't see it.
The Dodgers and the Diamondbacks.
Oh,
Dodgers
Arizona.
and Diamondbacks.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, it was only great in so much as the game was super delayed because this bee colony had formed on the netting, and the beekeeper was a Little League coach and left his kid's Little League game to come and get rid of and then they had him throw out the first pitch.
That's awesome. I didn't know. I just knew they had a beekeeper come out.
And it became like a viral. The guy was like came out and everybody's cheering. He comes out in his beekeeper uniform, his outfit, and throw the pitch. And I mean, he took his the mask off and stuff. But it was nice. I was watching the Phillies game last night, at least first 2 innings before I went to bed, and they would have like live check-ins to the situation with the bees, and they're like, "This it wasn't like this before anybody got on the field. Like it just started to happen."
Wow.
So it was, but seeing the guy throw out the first pitch, I don't think he threw it really well because you don't actually see where it went.
Yeah.
But it was cool. Everybody was cheering. He was super pumped.
I have always thought so. I got to hit a ceremonial golf shot, tee shot, at the beginning of a local competition between a couple clubs. Nothing more nerve-wracking than a ceremonial first anything. Like the idea of throwing out a ceremonial first pitch. I played baseball, pretty high level, and I would be nervous.
Yeah.
Like that's a nerve. That's why I think one of the greatest presidential moments of all time.
Oh, Bush, 100%.
Was George Bush after 9/11.
Yep.
And the emotion, the play, the World Series, the pressure, everything. And not just did he throw it, he threw a strike.
A dead strike. Up in the zone. It was up in the zone, but it was a strike.
It was a strike, and it was just one of those. I think it was the most iconic first pitch in history.
I have to agree with you. It's still something that around that time, around World Series time, it's played every time. I loved.
It gives me the chills.
Yes,
it still gives me the chills. Watching
does.
him come out to the chants of USA and just the way the country felt at that time, and to be in New York, right? To be in New York and to make that first pitch is.
But but you're right, how he did it, and did it so casually. He just went up and flipped it.
Yep. Just like he was. But then in a book it was in a book that he said how nervous he was, and Jeter came by when he was warming up and told him, Mr. President, you can't bounce it; they'll boo you.
Yeah.
Like I don't. It was just a great moment.
All right. Well, I think we'll leave some golf talk till next week. Byron Nelson's coming up this week. Live Golf plays in Singapore, and I had such high hopes for Anthony Kim last week. He started off 1 under and then even, then blew up to 7 over in the last day for Live. But
your boy Wesley Bryan did pretty well.
Wesley Bryan did not play last week.
Couple weeks, the week before I saw him.
He played. Yes, he finished second in
the alternate event, right?
Punta Cana. And that got him into the Byron Nelson this week.
Right.
And then he will be playing either in the Wells Fargo or the Myrtle Beach Classic next week.
Bucket list course for me, by the way, and it's Quail Hollow.
Quail Hollow, that's it.
And
that's
there's always every time I watched the Wells Fargo or the PGA Championship at Quail Hollow, I've always that course just. It looks on TV.
Yeah.
Like I'd want to go, and everybody I've talked to said it's a must. Like if you can get to Quail Hollow, play it.
All right. Well, that's generally assembled for this week. We will have more podcasts right where you are listening to this as the week goes on. You can find us on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. That's it. All right.
We'll see you
Generally
next week.
assembled. Beep, boop, beep. We're out.